In the middle of a fight, this man with the power of telekinesis raises his hands above his head and waves them around. His opponent notices the day seems darker and looks up to realize that the sunlight itself is being manipulated. A second later, a motherfucking solar-powered spirit bomb crashes down onto him. This is the coolest shit ever. I read this manga over 18 years ago, and this scene still lives rent-free in my head. Anytime a character gets a new power-up, I will inevitably compare it to a motherfucking telekinesis-controlled solar-powered spirit bomb. Just cause it's so damn cool. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Psyren is a 145-chapter manga, which is more than a respectable length for something running in Shonen Jump. It has plenty of standout moments, but is the rest of the manga as good, and does it hold up today? To determine that, I made a list of stuff I remember liking and not liking from this manga before I reread it, and then we'll see if those points are still valid and rate the series out of 10. Number 1. Motherfucking telekinesis-controlled solar-powered spirit bomb. Yes, this is still cool. Number 2. A great first arc. And no, I didn't put this on the list just because it's a great segue for the video.
Oh, that's convenient.
But because it genuinely had a great setup for the world and a foreboding tone that even little baby me could recognize as good. But the reason why this arc was a standout is because after this there's a bit of a genre shift, but I'll get more into that later. Meet our main character, Yoshina Agaha, who in the first scene we see is beating up a bunch of delinquents. He's brash, confident, good in a fight, and he has a side hustle of doing any request for the low price of 10,000 yen.
My mind's telling me no, but my body...
No, he usually just looks for lost cats and beats up stalkers. He's also pessimistic about the fate of the planet and humanity because of the increasing number of missing persons in his town, and stuff like nuclear war and global warming. This chapter was released in 2007, by the way. One day when walking home, a public payphone starts ringing when he's the only one nearby. Yep, a payphone. I told you this manga was old. After he picks up, he only hears some heavy breathing before seeing a ghost spirit phantom thing that promptly disappears, leaving behind a phone card. Weirded out, he goes to school the next day where we're introduced to the main heroine, the Ice Queen Amamiya Sakurako. She has a reputation for being an unfriendly loner, but Yoshina recalls a time when they were childhood friends and she was super cheerful and popular. He notices that Amamiya also has a calling card just like the one he found the previous night, but when he asks her about it, she gets mad, says she doesn't know what he's talking about and runs away. But not before he hears her whisper, "Save me." And the very next day, she is confirmed as a missing person. From then on, Yoshina investigates her disappearance with only the calling card and the word that's written on it as his clue, Psyren. And the deeper he looks, the creepier it gets. Some people have never heard the word before and his friends think it's some sort of dangerous scam, but the internet is full of rumors about the missing people and conspiracy theories about a game that nobody returns from. But there is a reward of 500 million yen to anybody that can solve the mystery. The turning point comes when he uses the card at a payphone and is greeted with a long-ass questionnaire recording. But the more questions he answers, the more it seems like the voice on the other end knows exactly who he is, and isn't a recording at all. Eventually he gets pissed off and storms away, but the very next day a suspicious-looking duo tracks him down to school and attacks him. He gives them a pretty good beating, but gets pepper sprayed in the face during the fight. As he's stumbling around with his eyes painfully closed, he hears a phone ringtone blaring in the background, and we see the insignia that's printed on the card transform. It turns out it was an eye all along, and now it's opening. I believe this is called symbolism. As he tries to call the police for help, he mistakenly answers the phone, and then silence. He opens his eyes and finds himself in a desolate wasteland, where he will play the death game known as Psyren. What follows is an intense survival thriller, where he, Amamiya, and a bunch of other survivors are attacked by insect monsters and super strong humanoid types. And just to set expectations for you if you read this is not an isekai. Our characters will be traveling back and forth between this desolate world and the modern world to slowly unlock the mystery. They will also find that the two worlds are linked and that their actions in one will affect the other. So remember when I said earlier that after this arc there's a tonal shift? That's because after this, they develop powers. You know, in case the motherfucking telekinesis-controlled solar-powered spirit bomb didn't tip you off. It has a similar system to Hunter x Hunter except simplified, where powers are separated into 3 groups. Blast for offensive powers like pyrokinesis and shooting stuff out of guns. Enhance for boosting your physical abilities and 5 senses. And Trance for powers like telepathy and messing with your opponent's mind. You may also know these as Burst, Rise, and Trance if you read this 18 years ago like me. Powers are cool and all, but I can't deny that after this it does feel like an entirely different genre of manga. The first arc had an atmosphere of desperation, where the characters had no idea what the heck was going on, and they had to scramble to survive using nothing but their soft, fleshy human bodies. But as the manga goes on, it turns more and more into a battle shonen. But is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I'd say that's up to personal preference, but it definitely is something to note. Personally, I preferred the survival thriller atmosphere and was slightly disappointed, but that doesn't mean I didn't like the shonen action it became. However, this does lead into number 3, cool powers and creative ways people use them. Motherfucking telekinesis controlled solar powered spirit bombs. Yoshino's ability is to create a black sphere that has a mind of its own and reacts to the powers of others, attacking friend and foe alike. This girl also has telekinesis, but uses automation programs to have it do things so she doesn't need to pay attention at all. Truly ahead of her time. This guy can walk through walls, so naturally he uses his powers to rip out people's bones and hearts when he fights. And also whatever freaky shit this is. This guy's sword is really long. People might criticize the power system for being a dumbed down version of Hunter x Hunters, but the author spent a lot of time brainstorming cool powers and creative ways to push them to their limits, and you definitely notice that as you're reading. Number 4. Poor pacing and rushed final arc. Did you know that Psyren was published in Shonen Jump in what many call its golden age? Here are just some of the ongoing manga that was published alongside it, aka its competition. Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, Gintama, To Love Ru, Bakuman, Toriko, Sket Dance, Kuroko no Basque, Beelzebub, Medaka Box.
That's rough, buddy.
Probably because of the fierce competition, Psyren jumped up and down the magazine rankings pretty sporadically every week. There was actually even a phenomenon named after this called Psyrening that referred to the up and down seesaw in the ranks. So how did this affect the pace of the manga? It was because of the constant threat of cancellation that I thought the author might have rushed the manga at several points, but was I just imagining things? Now, at the time when I read each chapter week by week, I thought it was rushed mainly because the fights were short as hell, but in hindsight this wasn't the case for most of the manga. I'll get into the parts where it was later, but it turns out the fights were made to be shorter and more impactful on purpose, as opposed to the 20 episode long fights I was used to at the time. And in current day, I much prefer this faster pacing. Because I'm old and I don't have time for motherfucking telekinesis manipulated powered solar bombs to take that long to charge.
Next time on Dragon Ball.
But there is one major exception to this, the final arc. Wow, it is rushed. Maybe the threat of cancellation finally caught up to Psyren, but the final arc is only 35 chapters long, yet easily could have been 3 or 4 times that length given the amount of stuff crammed in there. There were power-ups all over the place, and most of them feel undeserved because they just happened so fast, but also because some of them feel like asspulls and probably would have been better for the overall story if they weren't there. The fight started and ended too quickly.
A few moments later.
And a lot of plot points that should have had amazing payoffs just didn't feel earned because it was so rushed and brushed over in a few panels. This all culminates in the storytelling taking a massive hit, so as a reader you're just less invested overall. And sadly I don't even think you can blame Schrodinger's cancellation for this, because there were some baffling story decisions in there that would have sucked no matter how much time they had to cook. In particular, there was one dumb plot point that led to a pointless side arc and a silly hidden final boss. But how much did this subpar final arc negatively affect the overall rating of this manga? Well, it definitely leaves a bit of a bad taste in your mouth since it's the last thing you experienced, but it's not so bad that it retroactively ruins all the good stuff that came before it, and still well worth the read. 8 out of 10.